Hello and welcome back to Adventure 82, part 4, I think now. I'm losing track.
3.
Anyway, the point is, you join me here now by what used to be Bowmore Station, so we'll go have a look at that in a minute. And then we're going to be working our way down, and then we're going to finish off today down at what used to be the Haule Station. So let's get going. Right, so here we are. We're coming down here. Right, so this is the first station we're doing today. This is what used to be Bowmore Station. Now, there's absolutely nothing left. But here, up until the early 2000s, there was actually a section of platform left, and you can see here by the bench where they've actually dug it all away. They removed it when they built the house on the other side of this wall, which is why I'm being careful how high I'm filming. But the lamp post is an original from the station. That was actually on the platform. But not a hell of a lot else left here, I'm afraid. Because of course, like I say, because the house is being built, this is an all new wall. What we also have over here is obviously, you have the bunker, that's original, well, German original. There's nothing over here, but there used to be here, across here, there used to be a wooden gate that would separate the slipway down from the railway. That's also now gone. And you'll also notice how uneven this is. If I go back over here for a moment, and I face the other way, there we go. Apologise, that's a bit quick. You can see how much that dips down. That is a classic case of how they used to level things out with stilts here. That turned out to be a mistake down here, however.
You're in the back track there.
Because the reason that ended up being a mistake is because back in I think it was 73, I'll double check when I get home. If I'm wrong, I'll put the date on the bottom for you. The wooden stilts they had here to level out the road, or track bed actually as it was then, washed away and sank. So they had to repair that, which is another reason why I mentioned back, I think it was in the first video, about why they stopped doing winter services for reasons like that, because they had lots of, the washing away issue wasn't so much of a thing because I learned to deal with it, but definitely flooding issues were a constant problem for them.
I think this speaks something.
So
I think this says something.
And as you can see, it's something that's still prominent now because the slipway's there, and you can see here they have the floodgates for the car park, and they've got little metal sliders on either side here as well as the slipway to put a floodgate there as well to try and protect it from the water. But yeah, doesn't always work. Hello, train. Right, now the train's gone. We'll work our way further down here. Now you may remember I mentioned to you that there weren't many passing points along this line, and there wasn't. There was 2. One of those used to be, until First Tower had to be moved from its original location, which was further back, as was Millbrooks, which you've just seen in the last video. And then when they had to move First Tower, there wasn't enough room anymore for First Tower to be the passing point it had always been. So the passing point in First Tower was then moved up to here. So you can see here where you had one track this side and one the other side, so the trains could pass just before / after the station, depending on which direction obviously the train's coming. What we'll do now though, we'll work our way down here. And move our way along here. The next station along the way is Bowmore Halt, whether there's anything left of that or not, I'm not too sure. We'll have a look. These, coincidentally, this white fence is actually the white fence that used to be up there for the station. It was moved along to here in the 50s when they took away the German railway. They put it here, and that's when the bunker we just passed turned into a cafe. But I better switch sides because I'm on the cycle track as of right now, and they're not going to be happy if I'm in their way. So with that in mind, we shall work our way down here, and I'll see you a little bit further up. But I have to say before I go though, it's a very nice day to be out here. Anyway, I'll see you further down the line. Right, we're back again, and some more of these flower beds, grass beds really, lined with the sleepers. I've noticed something interesting though while I was down here, is that these sleepers, if you look, are thicker, and they've got different hole alignments. See? And then if you come across here to the sleepers we've had mostly so far, which is like these, which is smaller and a different hole alignment. So I'm wondering whether there's two types of sleepers going on along here. I'm wondering whether you've got, say, like the bigger sleepers maybe are from the 1800s, the original sleepers from the original line that have been repurposed, and then maybe the narrower sleepers are from the German line when they relayed their own narrow gauge track. Because I'd imagine they may possibly have smaller sleepers on a narrow gauge track. I'm not, like I say, by any means an expert on railways, but anyway, it's interesting. I think that they're different sizes. That said, if anybody does know, and I know there's probably someone out there who does, if you'd be so kind as to let me know in the comments below, and let everybody else know in the process, that would actually be really helpful. But anyway, moving our way down here, you can see here the German fortification wall. There wasn't really a seawall here. This section never actually had the seawall, which is probably why it flooded so much, in all honesty. But yeah, so we'll move our way down here. The interesting thing, once you get up to kind of Balroyal, going up this end, is the contrast you get between like the old, as in like the early 20th century, late 19th century stuff from the railway, and then the slightly more modern German stuff, as you're seeing now, a lot more kind of German beach walls and stuff. And when they meet with the very modern as well, sometimes on occasion, it's quite an interesting sight. You can see, like here for instance, you can clearly see like where the wall meets the far less modern granite slipway. So, and it's interesting to think that, like for instance, they didn't use concrete back in the 1800s, so you have to imagine that like that section there probably concreted by the Germans. But like I said, we're going to do about some German fortifications in a separate video. Right, this anyway, as you can see here, this was an access road put in back when the railway was here. So this was an access point and an exit point, as well as the road further up, which is now the car park for the Gunsite Cafe for Bowmore Station. But this also worked as an in and out access road for Bowmore Halt, which was located just opposite, if you're local and you know your roads quite well, what's called Ruel, just off the coast road here. So I've looked this up on Rail Maps Online. And again, thank you to Rail Maps Online for helping me with this, because it has helped massively pinpoint stations. So, right, if we come here, if we look through here, I'm going to now be brave. See what I mean? So easy to get run over by a cyclist. Right. Anyway, right, I'll be brave. Right, see there, that road there, you can see that's that lane there, that's Rouau. This here, this inset section here, which you can see, if I come backwards a bit, one, so I don't get run over, and two, so I can show you the shape. Right, so if we look at this flower bed now, as you can see, it curves inwards. Thank you, bicycle. And you can see there where it curves inwards, it comes out, it's quite level all the way along here, and then once you get to this side, it curves in a bit slightly. That's where the platform was for what was Beaumont Halt. And as you can see, there's absolutely nothing left. You can tell how big the platform was, and you can actually see the platform level. If we go a bit closer, you can kind of see here a line in the wall. Well, at least you can, well, I can see, I don't know if it comes through on the camera. You can see roughly how the platform came about halfway up the wall, or the concrete / cement section of the wall there. And right, so that's all that's left of this halt. There is nothing else. So what we'll do now, we'll have a bit more of a nose down here, and then we'll go along, and we'll finish off up today at Haule. Right, I was saying, you see these grass sections here, they're actually the gardens for the houses on the other side of the road, because when they built the railway alongside the road, obviously they were alongside on the back then of these gardens. And then they came to build what's called Haule, coming up along here. They had no choice but to make it go through the people's gardens. So round about the early 1910s, I think, they went through each of the houses, and they bought a certain amount of land of the front garden off of each of them, and then they put the road literally straight through their front gardens and built them new walls. So that's why now all these houses have their front garden on one side of the road and a house on the other. But some of them, you can see they still show how long they've been here. Right, so we'll walk down here now. I'm literally walking on the railway bed, which is, I think in some cases, taking my life in my own hands. It depends on the cyclist. But right, you can see along here now as well, there's a grass bank. The railway would have gone obviously straight through. It wouldn't have been this curved when the track was here. And it's quite interesting to note you've got these wooden bollards here. That's because back in the 50s, after the track bed was lifted, for a short period of time, because they decided it was dangerous, you could actually drive along here. But then, with people also coming down here on bicycles, people walking, the state decided the best solution was in fact to widen the Haule Road, which is probably the safest thing, to be honest. It probably isn't a good idea for people to be driving down here as well as everything else. But that's why you see these quite solid separations between the track bed and the walkway over there. But as we're coming up here, you'll find that the widening of the road for the safety of people didn't make too much of an impact on what was left of the railway. But then they widened it for a second time in the 1970s, and that did have an impact on our last station of Haule. So what I'll do is I will meet you down there at Haule station in a moment, because you don't really, I'm pretty sure anyway, you don't want me to be capturing you some video of a car park. But Haule here had an interesting kind of track layout, so once I get further up here, we'll get to just before where the Haule station was, and we'll have a look at this rather random track layout, which is actually still used as part of the car park, and we'll catch up there. Right, so if we have a look over here, you can see here what I was saying about the railway junction being quite interesting, because you have, if you come up here, now you remember, pardon me, at the beginning of the video, the track had a split where you had a section to bypass the other side so the trains could pass each other on the to and from journeys from St Oban / St Helier. Right, well, the one side used to come straight through here, which is now your car park, and the other one, if we turn around, not too quickly, don't make you dizzy, you can see here where the single track would have then obviously curved off here and gone round this way and off down that side, and then they joined back up just before well, it looks like to me they joined up just before Bowmore station. So that would mean that they must have had two platforms on Bowmore Haule, which is quite interesting, because I thought only the main stations had two platforms, but maybe just for that reason Bowmore Haule may have had two platforms. The problem with the halts is there doesn't seem to be any existing pictures of any of them, Millbrook Halt, Bowmore, Balroyal. There's nothing of these halts in existence for you to see or as reference. All you have is old cuttings from railway magazines and obviously documents from the time that tell you where it actually was. But yeah, back that way anyway, as I was showing you, there was a point system, and then you still had obviously had enough room for your walkway. You can see there now your towering German wall, and you can see here again they've gone back to literally no defence at all. This is what the entire length of the track when they first started building it was. Even down by the front it was like this, there was no wall, and you can see why this end had issues with flooding and stuff. You would have thought they'd have built a wall, to be honest. You know, I can't imagine it would have been too difficult. I know though that the train company itself did constantly find itself on the back foot with money wise anyway. It never seemed to make an awful amount of profit, but it did well enough to make its returns. It switched hands a few times as well, which didn't help. But yeah, it switched hands 3 times in total. The last time of which it was sold actually to a gentleman who was a member of the States at the time. This gentleman, on the same day he bought this railway, he also bought the Lamoille railway that went all the way up from St Albans to Corbière, and it was him that then put in the extra platform for St Albans station and merged two together, which is why most people think that it's all one line, but it's actually two separate lines. They were never actually physically connected until the early 20th century, so it was about 30 or so years old, the railway itself was, before it was actually ever linked up to the section that goes up to Lemoy. But right, so roundabouts here, give or take, by this lamppost, is where the station used to be. It was a little kind of wooden building, and it was actually here until the 70s. Now this is where the story I was mentioning to you before comes in. I said to you that the widening of the road itself did have a detrimental effect on the Haule station, and the reason for that is until the 1970s, as I say, this station building, the platform of course was gone, but the station building itself was still here until like the early to mid 70s, when they widened the road for the second time. As I was saying to you before, the second widening of this road had a detrimental effect on the Haule station. The reason for that is, till the early mid 70s thereabouts, this station building was still here, roundabouts where that tree is, between the tree I'd say and the bench. And like I say, till then it was here. Then they decided to widen the road some more, so they could put in the pavement which you see there by the wall. And because they decided to put that pavement in, the building had to go. So until then, it was here, but then they demolished it. So like I say, that was about here. I don't know if there's anything. I bet if you like, you could probably find some foundations or something probably underneath this grass. Especially here, it feels much more level than if like you're from further down here. So this area feels definitely more level, and it looks more level if I'm honest, if you look along that way. So what I would say is that, yeah, I reckon that you probably still have that building here, because until the 70s it was actually even being used. It was an ice cream kiosk, but that's all that's now left of this station, which is quite sad to think that building was here for, must have been about 100 years, because the Haule was along with a couple with the first stations that were built. So it's sad to think that it lasted that long, and then the only thing that made it disappear from this site here where it used to be is purely the fact that they wanted to widen the road. But I mean, you have to think, if it was now, they'd probably find a way of working around it, but in the 70s they weren't as keen on preserving things as they are now, and the car still was far more of a priority than anything else. So different times. But right, so that's it for this video. I'll find a nice place to sit down, and then we'll go over what's going to happen in the new station, and we'll finish this video off. Right, that's it for this video. We've seen the Haule down there, which is where we'll pick up the next time, and we'll finish at the last station for this section of work, which will be St Albans station, which is now obviously St Brela's Parish Hall. As far as the Haule station is concerned though, I've had a thought. It's like, if any of you are watching this, remember that ice cream kiosk there on the Haule. Do put a comment in the section below, because it'd be interesting to see how many people do remember that kiosk, and what kind of memories you have of it. Because I obviously wasn't born until the early 80s, so it would have been gone for at least 8 to 10 years by the time I was born. So it'd be interesting for everyone to hear what memories you have of that ice cream station. But until then, do subscribe to the channel, and I'm off until the next video.